Eric, what is your business and how do you serve your customers?
My business. I am a CPA, certified public accountant. And so I serve my customers in a lot of ways. I think the biggest thing I provide is peace of mind because, my business is, my last name is Stuber. So I am Stuber Accounting and Tax. And a lot of those words are scary to Stuber, not so much, but people hear accounting and tax and they start running usually. It's a challenging and absolutely necessary part of any business. You have to gotta track your dollars. Unfortunately, you have to pay taxes. That's just the system we've set up. And, if you aren't doing any of those things, eventually someone will remind you to do those things. The IRS will send you a nice little letter and remind you to get caught up. And so, but yeah, I provide a lot of peace of mind for people because I'm able to take some things that are really scary and sort of make those problems go away. I can handle a lot of tasks that most people don't, especially entrepreneurs, usually don't have the time to do. I hear that a lot of, I just gotta file my taxes, but I just had to do an extension. I just did not have the time to do it. Couldn't get it done. And so, but yeah, a lot of people are either don't have the time or they don't know how. Is very common. I went to school to do this. Like most people did not. They had other majors, they have other interests. That's why they're in the business that they're in. And so there's this whole other thing they got to do, and it's like, well, when am I going to do that? And like, okay, I've carved out time to do my taxes. Like, oh shoot, how do I do that? I don't know how to do that. Where do I start? So yeah, the service I provide can be sort of daunting to a lot of folks, but it absolutely has to get done. And so, yeah, one of the what I love about it is meeting people, learning about them, learning about their business, and just seeing, okay, what can I do for your financial, are you caught up on your books? Are you caught up on your taxes? It's usually where are you at? And
What do you mean caught up on your books? What's that?
Sure. So if you own a business, day in and day out, you're spending money. You got to spend money to make money. And so a lot of people will turn to QuickBooks or something to manage this. These days it's all done on software, and there's various accounting softwares out there. But a big part of this is just before you can do your taxes, you need the numbers. You need to know what the numbers are to go on the tax return. So there's quite a bit of work that goes on before that. You got to get me your statements. We got to go through the statements. We got to get all your transactions in order. We have to, reconcile your bank accounts, making sure that we've captured all the activity throughout the whole year. And then we have to, we can look at your reports, your financial reports, and just kind of see where you're at for the year. And then we can talk about your taxes. Then we can talk about the return. We can start making calls on like when to expense certain items that you purchased, or looking at the next year, planning for, maybe what you think the year's going to look like, what your tax liability might look like for that year. And so, because you do have to, as a business owner, you have to pay as you go. Federal income tax system is pay as you go. So if you're either it's taken out of your paycheck, but if you're self-employed, like entrepreneurs are, you have to make sure you stay on top of that, and you pay in quarterly. It's a bit of a gamble because you don't know exactly how your year's going to go, but you can have a good idea, and you can. That's why you talk to me,
So you mentioned QuickBooks.
Yes.
So if I have QuickBooks, why do I need a CPA?
Good question. Well, QuickBooks, there's a lot QuickBooks can do. It's not great at, I mean, it can't do everything automatically. As certainly as AI gets more sophisticated, the accounting softwares get much more sophisticated. There's much more they can do without me, which is fine. But what they can't do well yet, I think, is interpret your financial position, or they can't offer good good suggestions on maybe like what your financial position should be, or are we tax planning appropriately, or so there's still quite a bit of need for someone like me, mostly to interpret where you are.
So you're talking about tax planning, but so if I make some money, doesn't the government just say if I make $50,000, I have to pay $10,000 of taxes? Isn't that how it works?
I mean, sometimes, yeah. So if you're in certain industries, take construction, for example, an industry that has heavy capital expenditures. They're spending a lot of money on machinery, equipment, stuff like that. What you'll typically have to do is, what you can do is time when you purchase that equipment, because we just had a big tax overhaul of that big beautiful bill that we've been hearing about. Certainly mentioned the tax code quite a bit, and but yeah, a big decision we make usually at year end. It's like, okay, I've been thinking about purchasing this new piece of equipment. It's $100,000. Should I buy it in this year before the year turns over? Should I expense it in this year, or maybe I just wait? Because if I just buy it in January, it'll go on next year's tax return, and we could talk about that. So there's a lot of year-end cutoff planning that we do.
For a business owner, what's the biggest takeaway from the big, beautiful bill?
Well, one thing that's been nice is the QBI, Qualified Business Income Deduction, is they're trying to make that permanent. I know a lot of this, that was, I think, a nice tax.
What is that? What's
the Qualified Business Income Deduction? Yeah, that's came around in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. It was back in 2017. That was Trump's initial big tax reform. Mm-hmm. So that, for certain business types, that was so like a business owner typically, we'll call it, has a pass-through business. Usually it's set up as, if you're familiar with the term S corporation or a partnership, or LLC, or typically anything that's not like a big C corporation, like not Google, not Apple, they don't count. But it's for a lot of these folks who have their own business organized under an S corp or partnership. Those earnings, to an extent, actually, they're only taxed on % of their income, so they got a nice 20% cut. It's taken as a deduction later on the tax return. Won't bore you with all the details, but basically they got a nice little break, I think.
And so QBI.
That's QBI, Qualified Business Income Deduction. So
okay.
Qualified being, it's just got to be a certain type, which is you're self-employed. This is S corporation income. This is my partnership income, my LLC. I'm not a big corporation. I'm a self-employed person. This is qualified business income, and I get a nice little break on that. And so that is becoming permanent, which is, I think, is great. I mean, and permanent doesn't necessarily mean it can be repealed, but there's just a much lower chance of it being repealed in the future, I think, because there's just more administrative hurdles there that have to go through, that it has to go through to get removed from the tax code.
Okay. So one question I'm wondering is why do we even have to pay? Like, how does this work? How does this work? Why do we even have to pay?
Why do we have to tax?
Yeah. What's going on?
Well, because oddly enough, we haven't always had income tax. I mean, like in our lifetime, yes, we have obviously, but in the grand scheme of things, it's what 100. It's like 100 years old now. I think it was, yeah, it was sometime. Yeah, I mean, but the country's about 250 years old now, so we got along quite fine without it, and not quite fine. That's arguable. I don't want to get into history, but like in the grand scheme of things, I don't think the income tax is not super old. I mean, we've always had various taxes and tariffs, and that was kind of one of the reasons we wanted to become America in the first place, was all that various tariffs and taxes that they were charging. And so, but I mean, certainly, I think as long as now we're getting political here, as long as I think the Commonwealth is benefiting from what we're doing in some meaningful way, I think that's all we're trying to do, because you always hear, oh, my taxes paid for that, my taxes paid for that. And it's like, well, it's hard to say that. It's hard to think of it that way, because it's like, yeah, the federal government collects trillions and trillions of dollars from all of us, and that's crazy to think about. But yeah, I mean, it goes to Social Security. It goes to, things that benefit us. So I don't know if you were wanting my take on it.
Oh yeah, no, that's odd. I have another question for you.
Sure.
So, if I get $100,000 today, and I don't want to give half of that money to the government in taxes.
Good question. Yes. So there has to be some sort of deductibility to it, Well, I would ask, where did this money come from?
I went to the casino and I won it.
Gambling winnings. Oh, okay. Well, that's tricky, because the gambling is going to give you a form. Yeah. They're going to give you a W-2G. And so, because over a certain amount of winnings, yeah, that's tricky. If you are a professional gambler,
yeah,
then that's one thing. You can certainly write off a lot of travel and meals and other expenses against.
Wait, so it matters where I got the money?
It certainly does.
So if I just find 100,000? I'm walking out this door and I find $100,000.
Don't tell nobody.
Go tell about it. That's how I avoid paying tax.
Don't tell nobody. No, I mean, a lot of transactions are reportable. That's just why in January gets crazy, because that's when we start filing all your 1099s, all your W-2s, all those. Those are reportable transactions. So, if you hire an accountant, he'll look through your books, and
should
for the for the previous year, he'll look through it, and he or she, they will look through look for any reportable transactions that need to go on these forms, because there are certain rules, for like a 1099, it's got to be over $600 paid to an unincorporated entity, except lawyers, actually. So anything that my clients pay to you, I'm gonna report it. Sorry, I've got to. Whether even if it's an unincorporated law firm, it doesn't matter. So there are little nuances like that, that I would say keep us in business, because these are very, very nuanced rules, and they usually show up just because the IRS is having trouble maybe tracking certain industries, or they notice certain transactions are kind of going under the radar. So it takes them a while to sort of catch up on what they're missing. But then so you get nuanced rules like that.
So it kind of depends on where the money came from. If I just find $100,000, and so you said I could deduct my gambling winnings or my gambling expenses. Right?
Or if
I'm a professional gambler, so I'm one of these poker guys, and I'm a professional poker guy, right? So I can deduct whatever it costs me to get there. But what if I'm just have a W-2 job and I'm not? Can I still do anything about the taxes, or I just let out?
Yeah, so that kind of stuff certainly gets challenged, I'd say. I've seen a lot of what came under scrutiny, like a lot of people have horse farms, and so they were trying to they were presenting it like a business, but it lost money every single year. And so,
Is it a problem?
absolutely. Eventually, yeah. So the IRS will classify something as a hobby. They can certainly step in if you start showing these huge losses year over year over year on something. And so they can. I mean, I'm not saying, they will.
Okay.
It's usually if you're a small fish in a big sea, they might not notice it, but it's definitely a red flag when you are losing money year after year.
So if I want to lose money, be a small fish.
There you go.
All right.
Hey, it's Will with the Podcast Crew team. Spotlight is a vidcast shot at the Podcast Crew Studios in Minneapolis. We would love for you to be our guest. Email us at the email address on your screen below to get a copy of the upcoming schedule. It's free, it's easy, and it's a great way to try out a podcast or a vidcast with our pro team. We do an in-person, in-studio version if you're in the Twin Cities area, and also an online version if you're somewhere else. We'd love to have you, hear your story, and help you start your podcast journey. Thanks. Get in touch today.